There's something really interesting that happens when you cross $30,000. It's not just about having more money. It's about entering a completely different world. And I mean that literally. Everything changes. The spaces you inhabit, the people around you, the way you think about yourself, and the opportunities that suddenly become available. Most people don't talk about this threshold, but it's real, it's significant. And once you understand what happens at this level, we'll never look at your finances the same way again. Let's start with the basics. Under $30,000, you're making micro decisions every single day. Can I afford this coffee? Should I get the name brand or the store brand? Do I need new shoes, or can these last another season? These questions dominate your mental real estate. Your brain is constantly doing math, constantly calculating, constantly saying no. It's exhausting, honestly. And the spaces you occupy reflect this reality. You're in budget coffee shops with fluorescent lighting. You're at gyms with old equipment and crowded floors. Your home office, if you even have one, is squeezed into a corner of an apartment with furniture you picked up secondhand. These aren't bad things necessarily, but they're constraining, they're limiting. Then you hit $30,000. Suddenly, that daily math changes. Not because you're rich, but because the baseline shifts. You can order the coffee without calculating its impact on your monthly rent. You can buy the better version without guilt. And this small shift in decision-making creates a ripple effect that touches every part of your life. The spaces you choose to be in physically transform. The quality of the people around you changes. Your self-perception shifts, and your future possibilities expand in ways that feel almost exponential. One of the first things you notice is your environment. When you're under $30,000, you inhabit spaces that are optimized for cost, not experience. They're functional, they're basic. But once you cross that threshold, you suddenly have access to completely different environments. You can afford the private fitness studio instead of the big box gym. You can work from the upscale lounge instead of the free Wi-Fi spot at the budget cafe. You can have a proper home office with actual furniture designed for productivity instead of a folding table in your bedroom. These aren't luxuries. They're actually investments in your mental state and your ability to think clearly. And here's the thing that really matters. The people in these spaces are different. Not different as in better or worse, but different in their mindset. When you're at the budget gym, you're surrounded by people who are there for the same reason you are. It's cheap. When you're at the boutique studio, you're surrounded by people who are there because they're investing in their fitness, their health, their environment, and their future. And that changes the conversations you have. It changes the relationships you cultivate. You're surrounded by people who are there because they value the experience and the quality. That's a subtle but profound difference. The conversations are different. The energy is different. The norms are different. You start absorbing those norms through osmosis. Your clothing changes too. Not because you need to impress anyone, but because you could actually afford pieces that fit well and last longer. You move from thrift store finds and clearance racks to actually buying things in their normal price range. A fitted hoodie instead of an oversized graphic tee. Tailored joggers instead of sweatpants with holes in them. Premium sneakers that actually support your feet. A proper smartwatch. These items cost more individually, but they last longer and perform better. And psychologically, wearing things that fit well and function properly changes how you carry yourself. Your workspace transforms dramatically. At under $30,000, your desk is probably a thin piece of particle board on 2 filing cabinets. Your chair might be from a decade ago. Your lighting is whatever comes from the overhead fixture or a window. Once you hit $30,000, you can actually invest in an ergonomic desk, a proper chair, good lighting, and equipment that doesn't make you want to throw it out the window. This sounds superficial until you realize that you spend a third of your life working. The quality of your workspace directly impacts your productivity, your mood, and your physical health. This isn't luxury spending. This is infrastructure spending. But the really profound changes happen in less obvious ways. Your relationship with time shifts. Under $30,000, time feels like something you're constantly trading for money. You're thinking about side hustles and second jobs and whether you can squeeze out another few hours of billable work. Every hour not spent earning money feels like a loss. At $30,000, you start to have breathing room. You can spend an hour at a coffee shop that's actually nice without immediately thinking about the economic opportunity cost. You can take a walk without mentally calculating what you could be earning. This mental shift alone is worth thousands of dollars because it actually improves your decision-making quality. Your health changes too. When you're under $30,000, you might have health insurance, but you're probably stretching out medical visits because of copays. You're buying the cheapest food you can find, which is usually the worst food for you. You're stressed about money, which means cortisol is running through your system constantly. Once you cross 30,000, you can actually afford preventive care. You can see a dentist without calculating how many side hustles you need to afford it. You can buy higher quality food. You can afford a gym membership that doesn't feel like a punishment. And the stress, while it doesn't disappear, becomes a different kind of stress. It's progress stress, not survival stress. Your relationship with money itself transforms. Under 30,000, money is something that disappears the moment it appears. Bills, rent, food, car payment. It flows out. At 30,000, you can actually save. You can watch money accumulate. You can invest it. You can see compound growth. This isn't a huge amount, but it's enough to understand how wealth building works on a practical level, rather than theoretical. You're no longer just living paycheck to paycheck. You're actually starting to build. And that's when the real magic happens. Social dynamics shift in unexpected ways. You start going to different restaurants. Not five-star fine dining, but places where you can actually relax instead of worrying about prices. You can occasionally say yes to social invitations without immediately thinking about the cost. You can buy thoughtful gifts for people you care about without stressing. These small social capabilities compound into deeper relationships because you're not always operating from a place of scarcity. You can be present. Your aspirations change too. Under 30,000, you might be dreaming about having enough to cover next month's rent. At 30,000, your dreams expand. You start thinking about saving for a house down payment. You start looking at investment opportunities. You start wondering about starting a business. These aren't wild dreams of becoming a billionaire. They're concrete, realistic dreams about moving to the next level. And having a clear vision of what's possible completely changes how you approach work and money. Here's something that really matters. You start thinking in terms of assets instead of just income. A car stops being just transportation and becomes an asset that you might finance differently. Your living space stops being a sunk cost and becomes something you might think about buying instead of renting. Technology stops being an expense and starts being an investment. Your education stops being optional and becomes something worth investing in. This mental shift from consumption to assets is one of the most important changes. Your daily confidence changes. This is harder to quantify, but it's real. When you can afford to replace something that breaks instead of trying to jury-rig it, you feel more capable. When you can afford to fail at something, you're more willing to try new things. When you're not constantly stressed about money, you have more mental bandwidth for creativity and problem-solving. Other people sense this too. You're simply more present and less reactive. Your relationship with luxuries shifts completely. Under 30,000, a luxury is something you feel guilty about. You might get it, but there's this nagging feeling that you shouldn't have. At 30,000, you can have small luxuries without guilt. A nice coffee, a good book, quality skincare products that actually work. These aren't frivolous anymore. They're part of a baseline standard of living where you're taking care of yourself. And taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's foundational. The network effect becomes real at this level. You start moving in circles where people are also thinking about building and investing and growing. You hear about opportunities. You get invited to things. You make connections that would have been impossible when you were just trying to survive. Someone mentions a side opportunity, and suddenly you have the cash and mental space to explore it. That next opportunity might not be at 30,000, but it's visible on the horizon now. Your ability to weather setbacks changes dramatically. An unexpected medical bill doesn't destroy you. Your car breaks down, but you're not pulling from your survival fund. A project doesn't work out, but you can actually afford to try again. This resilience compounds because failed experiments teach you things, and now you can afford to have those experiments. This is how people actually build wealth, not through perfection, but through the ability to fail and recover and try again. Your living space itself becomes different. You're not optimizing purely for cost anymore. You might move to a place with natural light. You might get actual furniture instead of hand-me-downs. You might have space for a home office that's actually separate from where you sleep. These environmental changes sound superficial until you realize they affect your mood, your sleep, your ability to focus, and your overall quality of life on a daily basis. Your relationship with time and convenience shifts too. You might pay for delivery instead of spending an hour getting groceries. You might hire someone to clean instead of spending Saturday on your apartment. These seem expensive when you're thinking scarcity, but when you're thinking about your hourly value and your mental energy, You start making different calculations. You buy convenience. And that convenience buys you time and mental space for higher value activities. Your health and fitness change. You're not just getting exercise anymore. You're in an actual studio with good music and an instructor who knows your name. You have space and equipment at home to work out. You can afford proper nutrition. You can hire a trainer if you want guidance. Your fitness stops being something you do because you have to, and becomes something you actually enjoy. That matters more than you think. Education becomes accessible. You can afford actual courses. You can buy books without calculating the cost. You can take time to learn something new because you're not in constant survival mode. And education and skill building are actually the best investments you can make at this level, because they directly increase your earning potential. Your ability to plan becomes clearer. You're not just planning for the next month. You're planning for next year. You can set goals that aren't just about surviving. You can think about what you actually want instead of what you need. This shift in perspective is absolutely crucial because it changes how you make decisions. Your technology upgrades. You can afford the phone that works well instead of the one that barely functions. Your laptop doesn't crash constantly. Your workspace has reliable internet and equipment that doesn't slow you down. This seems like a comfort thing, but it's actually productivity. Technology that works well is an investment in your efficiency. Your fashion sense matures. You're not trying random styles. You're building an actual wardrobe where pieces go together. Quality basics that last. You can afford to look put together without spending a fortune on trendy pieces that fall apart. And when you look put together, you feel more confident. Other people respond to you differently. Your financial confidence grows. You're not just managing money, you're growing it. You understand how to save. You understand how to invest. You understand how compound growth works because you're experiencing it. This knowledge is power because now every money decision you make is informed by understanding rather than desperation. Your future feels possible. This might be the most important change. Under 30,000, the future feels like something that happens to you. At 30,000, the future starts feeling like something you're building. You're not just hoping for a break. You're creating circumstances that will compound over time.